Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
We are playing the Russian national anthem on the Savage Nation because we want peace with Russia. We are not going to be dragged into a war by the evil Democrats who have started this psychotic narrative and now believe it themselves. Welcome to the Savage Nation. This is no longer a joke. This is psychotic. This is evil. This is biblical. It must be stopped. I'm going to do something for you that I have not done in a long while. In fact, I never did it, which is this, a flashback. On October 17th, 2016, Donald Trump, then running for office, came on the Savage Nation, and we had a great dialogue. And during the dialogue, I asked Mr. Trump if he would meet with Vladimir Putin before the inauguration if he won the presidency. Do you remember that? I said, if you win the presidency on November 8th, or November 7th, whatever the day of the election, pardon me, all of you twits in the news media, you know what I think of you? I think of you, Montana is what I think of you. And we'll talk about that in a minute because we're going to talk about everything from Montana to Moscow on the Savage Nation today. Let me tell you something. You keep pushing people around, you're going to get pushback. There's only so much we're going to take from you. Now, let me go into this story a little bit more. October 17, 2016, Trump is on this show. I asked him a question because I saw what Hillary Clinton and the evil Democrat machine was doing, which was ginning up a Russia story that was fake. And I said, we're in a Cold War now with Russia, when for years we were in a hot relationship with Russia. Then it became a warm relationship with Russia. Now all of a sudden, under Obama and Hillary, they want a war with Russia. Would you meet with Putin when you take office? Trump said something interesting, which I led him to, and I don't know if he regrets this or not, but on this show we made news. I want you to listen to clip number 2 on the Savage Nation carefully. Listen to every word. It's only a minute long. Donald, listen, how would you diffuse the situation now between Russia and the U.S., assuming the world doesn't blow up before January? What would you do if you were president? First day, what would you do with Putin to stop these war drums?
Well, the problem is Putin has no respect for Obama at all, doesn't like him and doesn't respect him, and Obama doesn't like Putin, but they have a great dislike for each other, and Putin has no respect at all for Obama, and I think that you have potentially a really catastrophic situation here, I'll be honest with you, because those two are not. I will say this. If I win on November 8th, and hopefully every one of your listeners is going to go out, we're going to need everybody.
Absolutely.
So Republicans have a tougher path, you know that, to get there.
Yes.
But if I win on November 8th, I think I could see myself meeting with Putin and meeting with Russia prior to the start of the administration. I think it would be
wow. That's an amazing news story. That's fabulous, Mr. Trump. Really? So that's actionable? You schmucks, you evil people in the media, you rats, you warmongers, you psychotics, you morons, you Hollywood drug addicts, you. Man wanted to defuse things with Russia. All of you cowards in your tight, skinny jeans. All of you sluts in your tight dresses. You want more Muslims in the country? You want open borders and love while you live behind closed gates with bodyguards? You psychos, you? And we're supposed to believe anything you say with your fake movies? Let me tell you something right now. Trump did the right thing by talking with diplomats in Russia. Even if he spoke with Putin, so what? Did you want war with Russia? Then go enlist somewhere. Go enlist somewhere with your skinny pants. Or your tight dresses. Go enlist in the military and go fight the Russian troops, you idiots, you. You don't even know what you're talking about. So Trump comes on the show and he says, yes, if I win, I'll even talk with Putin and others before I'm inaugurated. Now, tell me why it would be a crime if he spoke with others in Russia or Putin himself. Tell me where the crime is. There is no crime. The crime is in the mind of Wolf Blitzer. The crime is in the mind of Jake Tapper. The crime is in the mind of Andy Cooper. The crime is in the mind of the criminals in the media. That's where the crime is. The crime is in the mind of Mad Maxine. The crime is in the mind of Nanny Nancy. That's where the crime is. There is no crime, you idiots, you. We're also going to talk about the Montana story. I have live stations in Montana, KBOZ in Bozeman, KMPT in Missoula, KYYA in Billings, Montana. And there's a story coming out there of a Republican candidate who allegedly body slammed a twit from the Guardian newspaper. He had enough with him. Now, I'm not going to support attacking anyone because I don't believe in that. However, whatever happened, happened. And I'd like to hear from the voters in Montana as to whether or not your vote has changed as a result of this alleged body slamming of the twitty reporter on the Savage Nation, because witnesses have changed their story. It is the Savage Nation. The phone number is 855-407-2828. There are many other stories. I'll just read you some of the headlines that caught my eye. I'm not surprised by this one. Drug counselors overdose at addiction facility. Are you listening to this story? Oh, drug counselors? That's an oxymoron. Drug counselors? Who do you think they are? They're former addicts. Let me tell you something. There's almost no such thing as a former addict. 2 counselors at an addiction facility in southeastern Pennsylvania died after ODing on opioids. Are you listening to this story? Okay, you got the story? This is not a funny story. This is a tragic story. You think it's a funny story? I don't. Here's another story for those of you who hate Christians and love Muslims. Villains in an upcoming video game are white Christian right-wing extremists from Montana. I guess that'll please all of the twits from L.A. who live behind guard gates and hate America, hate Christians, hate people with guns, hate those in the military, hate those who wear crosses, and tell us to open our borders to more Somalis who may be terrorists. You're not going to believe this. A graphic for the latest installment of the video game series, Far Cries, indicates that white Christian Americans from Montana will be the antagonists. This I found on InfoWars, written by Adon Salazar. It's astounding, the story. You're not going to believe it, but the characters that they show are all white Christians as the villains, not those who blow up schoolgirls in Manchester or kill gays in Orlando, but the white Christians who are the backbone of the United States of America. This is how sick this country has become as a result of the round-the-clock propaganda by Andy Cooper, Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer, and the other vermin who are destroying this country from within. Here's another little story for you. The New York Police Department and more sponsors have dropped out of the Puerto Rican Day Parade because they're honoring a terrorist freed by Barack Obama. You know Obama pointedly and knowingly released MS-13 gang members. Didn't make that story to the newspaper, huh? Didn't get to your newspaper? Did Obama, it was leaked, knowingly released MS-13 gang members into the streets of America in order to bring this country to its knees? That's what he did, that criminal, that gangster, that snake! Well, he also released a Puerto Rican terrorist just in time for the annual National Puerto Rican Day Parade. Well, the parade now has suddenly lost some sponsors because they're celebrating a convicted terrorist who sentenced President Barack the Snake Obama commuted and who was released this month. Who dropped out of the parade? The New York Yankees, Coca-Cola, JetBlue, and AT&T all pulled out of the June 11th parade this week in the wake of the parade committee's decision to award Lopez Rivera, a terrorist who enabled acts of terrorism in the name of Puerto Rican independence, the title of National Freedom Hero. Are you listening to this? In addition to sponsors, representatives of the city's fire and police departments have also rescinded their support for the Puerto Rican Day Parade. The NYPD confirmed that Commissioner James P. O'Neill will not attend the event over the decision to honor Lopez Rivera, while the NYPD and FDNY's Hispanic societies have both withdrawn from the parade. Good for them. Good for them for overriding the ethnicity and going to the sanity. The union representing New York's firefighters also withdrew its support. The controversy centers around Lopez Rivera's role as a key member of the radical Marxist Armed Forces of National Liberation, FALN, which conducted more than 100 bombings in the U.S. in the 70s and 80s, killing 5 people, injuring dozens, and causing millions of dollars worth of damage. So this is who they're celebrating in the Puerto Rican Day Parade. I am so glad to hear that finally some sponsors are on the right side of things and that the NYPD and the FDNY are also on the right side of things. This is the Savage Nation. Lots of stories, believe me. There's no end to the news. Just when you think there is no news, there's news, news, and more news. There's news about the news. Now, the biggest story to me is the Russia story. I will go back again to the main theme of today's show, which is that if Trump talked with Russia before he was inaugurated or after, so what? What is the big deal? He's on a historical and monumental foreign trip right now, and all you hear in this country from the left-wing fanatics, I don't have names for them anymore. All I have to do is say that the reporters, and you say reporter now, what you think of as a human. I wish I could say what I really want to say. I'm at a point of boiling. What happened in Montana is just the beginning of what's going to happen in this country if they keep it up. If they keep pushing red-blooded Americans around, if they keep supporting Islamic murderers and attacking the soldiers who go out there to stop them or kill them, I'm warning you that you will have a civil war in this country. I'm warning you, Andy Cooper. I'm warning you, Wolf Blitzer. I'm warning you, Jake Tapper. Cut your rhetoric down. Stop attacking white Christians. Stop attacking soldiers. Stop attacking everything that's right in this country and supporting everything that's wrong and perverted. You have to understand, you are destroying this country. So Russia. They can't stop pushing the false narrative that Trump colluded with the Russians. Every day, the Amazon Post, used to know it as the Washington Post, but it was bought by the Amazon guy, and he turned it into a mimeograph sheet against Trump. And the so-called Old York Times, they come out with some other story that was leaked to them by anonymous sources about Trump and Russia. The latest one from the Old York Times talks about how Russian officials discussed how to influence Trump aides last summer. This is news? This is news? All governments, even ours, try to influence elected officials in every country. Do you remember Obama tried to influence the elections in Israel? Have you forgotten what the snake did? Have you forgotten that the snake sent some of his little rats over there to Israel to undermine Netanyahu? That didn't get reported by Tapper, Blitzer, and company, did it? All the little mice didn't report that. All governments, even ours, try to influence elected officials in every country. So now CNN, the worst of them all, is running with a story about Jeff Sessions not disclosing a contact he had with the Russian ambassador, even though he's not required to list every interaction he has with foreign officials. To all this I say, so what? You don't remember, but before the election is when the Democrats began painting Russia as the evil one. It's been over a year. And last October, before the election, Donald Trump came on the show, and I told him this would happen. I said to him, that they're setting him up to blame Russia to make his administration seem illegitimate. I have the soundbite. You're not going to believe this. I predicted this. I told it to Donald. I told him they were setting him up. Then I asked him how he would diffuse a situation that was becoming increasingly tense because of the Democrat hateful rhetoric, and what he would do to stop the war drums. That's when we made national news. Donald told me he knew that the situation was bad because Putin had no respect for Obama, and then he dropped the bombshell on the show that if he won the election, he could meet with Putin before the start of the administration. That was a huge story. Do you know what happened after that? Obama the snake and the evil anti-American Democrats and the sneaky media all started to play down that Russia was influencing the election. They were doing this because they thought Hillary was going to win, and they didn't want any questions as to whether there was any interface or interference into the election. But Trump surprisingly won. He won an upset. He was the underdog. Then it became all about Russia and collusion. And all the talk and all the news is taking our relationship with Russia to a new low, to a point where it will be beyond repair. None of this is a mystery. There is no collusion. Donald Trump told the Savage Nation he would talk with Putin before he took office right here on this show. And he was going to do so to make peace with Russia. If that was collusion, then I'm in favor of collusion. I'll be right back. I'm the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
So we're dealing with everything from Montana to Moscow in the Savage Nation, and I have 3 great affiliates in Montana. You don't know this, right? I have KBOZ in Bozeman, KMPT in Missoula, KYY in Billings, and there's a big hoo-ha over this Italian, sounds like an Italian name, Gianforte, a tough guy, running for office. He gets set up by this twit from a left-wing newspaper who keeps goading him and goading him and goading him So apparently the guy body slammed him and threw him out of the office. Now, I'm not for that. As you know, I'm a man of peace, and I come in peace, and I project peace. But you know, human emotions tend to run high. You keep goading real American men, the real ones, not the ones playing men in Hollywood, but the ones who are real men, and things happen that you don't expect. And I ask the people in Montana if their vote has changed. Roscoe on KBOZ radio in Bozeman. Roscoe, has your vote changed as a result of the body slamming?
It hasn't changed, but I was not going to vote today because I just thought that the G-Man Gianforte had this election in the bag. However, now with watching what I've seen on TV, I'm going to go down and vote this afternoon. And one thing I would do if I was you, Michael, I would call this election right now for Gianforte. Just get on the rig and let's just call it. And he won. I think that would.
Oh, how do we know he won? It's not in yet.
Well, I follow elections a lot in Montana, and I'm kind of an expert on this, and that's what I would. That's my opinion. You can get this number, and you can be sure that he will win.
All right, so you were not going to go vote because you thought he was a shoo-in, but now that he's been set up by the left-wing smear machine, you're definitely going to vote for Gianforte. All right, Roscoe, I'm sending you a copy of Trump's War because we're all at war. It's a war not only against radical Islam, but against the American media. Yes, let me make it very clear. It is a war for our survival against the slimy snakes in the media who are out to push us too far and destroy every last one of us who actually believes in the red, white, and blue and the borders, language, and culture that I talk about on the Savage Nation. Now, when I come back, I am going to play a soundbite from October 17, 2016 with Donald Trump, where I eerily predicted that they would set up a Russian hacking narrative to destroy him if he won. That is right. This is the Savage Nation. I'm Michael Savage, the radio wizard. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Because the state of Montana is one of the last holdouts of the real America, churches, real families, real men, things like that. These snakes, the anti-American vermin, are targeting Montana to try to insert one of their deviants into the political process. They gave him a cowboy hat. They gave him a Roy Rogers guitar. You know, so something happened. He pushed a guy of Italian descent, I believe, by the name Gianforte. I never heard of him, who's running. Some twit from the Guardian paper goes and sticks a mic in his face and doesn't stop. And he says, stop it. So something happens. He blew a fuse. I'm a hot-tempered person. I know how these things happen. So now they're trying to undermine the candidate in Montana. The election today, it's a special election. And the reason there is an election in Montana right now, the special election is because the representative from Montana was selected by Donald Trump to go to Washington and work in his administration. So now the left-wing vermin, funded no doubt by George the Reptile Soros, in my estimation, the reptile is behind all of this, sends this reporter to keep goading this guy, goading the guy. And the guy freaks. I'm going to play that soundbite in a minute. But I must go back to the biggest story, which is the international story of the fake narrative of Trump talking to Russia. You don't know how big this is. This is a huge story. He came on the show October 17th, and he said, yes, if I win on November 8th, I think I could see myself meeting with Putin and meeting with Russia prior to the start of the administration. So they're taking what would make sense if you were a patriot and didn't want war with Russia and turning it into the exact opposite. But what do you expect from a party like the Democrats, run mainly... Oh, I wish I could finish the sentence. I wish you were in my house with me right now. I tell you exactly why they're doing this. But in the following soundbite, you will hear me predicting to Donald Trump that they will try to destroy him with the false narrative of Russia hacking. Yes, I was the one who saw it because I am Lincaeus, the pilot seer of the Argonauts in radio. Listen to clip 3. You know that I've studied the news and I do nothing but the news day and night. I do nothing else. What they're setting you up for is that if you win the election, which could happen, by the way, you're not out yet at all, They're trying to discourage Republicans and conservatives from voting, in my opinion, because they know that you're ahead in the polls. Their own internal polls are showing you surging. They're setting it up so that if you win, this illegitimate government will claim that the Russians hacked the election, and it is an illegitimate election, Donald. That's what I see coming. Do you agree with that possibility?
Well, I think this. I do think we're probably ahead because we have tremendous enthusiasm. Our people are going to all vote, and I think a lot of people, for instance, I think we're going to do very well with African Americans.
I'm not interested in the election per se. I should win a Pulitzer Prize for that particular soundbite. If there was a legitimate Pulitzer Prize, if there was a legitimate award for the most insightful analysis in the news business, I would win the highest of prizes, but I don't expect it from the vermin who are undermining America. I won the highest prize in America by having the most highly rated show on many stations in this country, and by having my book Trump's War debut as number one on the New York Times list. That was the prize. That said, the Americans said, "We know how good you are, Mike," and we saw that you saw it coming before all of us. Did you hear what I just said to Donald? They're going to set you up. I saw it. I'd be the greatest consigliere he could ever get, because I'm not a lawyer and I don't think like a lawyer. I don't think like a lawyer. Some lawyers are brilliant. I've met some who are geniuses, but I'm not a lawyer. I don't think the way lawyers think. They're two-dimensional. I think five-dimensionally, and I saw what was coming. Now I want to go over to the Montana story, because I say we're covering everything from Moscow to Montana. And so this lousy reporter keeps goading the candidate, sticking the mic in his face, setting him up with antagonizing questions, basically yelling fire in a crowded theater over and over again at him. Listen what happens.
And we'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you
have
the
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last time you came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the Guardian?
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Get the hell out of here.
He just body slammed me. All right, again, I'm a man of peace. I don't believe it's legitimate for anyone to slam a reporter to the ground. However, emotions run very high when you provoke people, especially if they're real men who actually eat steak. If he had been on a vegan diet, or was at a vegan bakery while watching a rape and just stood on the side and watched it. Did you hear about that one last week, a kidnapping in San Francisco? A mother, Saturday morning with a 3-year-old child, is outside a bakery in San Francisco by the waterfront. A homeless woman, a deranged maniac who belongs in a nut house, grabs the baby away from the mother. There's a scuffle. So they interview people from other stores around there. Some guy who runs a vegan cookie store said he observed the whole thing and did nothing. But 2 guys who ran the butcher shop next door came running over and subdued the homeless garbage till the police arrived. If ever you wanted to know what meat does for you, there it is. Now, you go to a meat-eating state like Montana, and you stick a microphone in people's faces and you start jabbing them with it, you never know what might happen. And that's why I'm asking the people listening to the show from Montana. I didn't know I had 3 great stations there because, you know, I focus on the biggest stations. You know that. There's no secret. But I said to the guys, how many stations do we have live in Montana? I was so pleased to hear that we have KBOZ in Bozeman, KMPT Missoula, KYYA in Billings, that I'm even thinking of buying a ranch up there. I've not been to Montana, but I have family who's been to Montana. They love it. 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 You ever watch the shows on TV on the weekend, sometimes the sports shows, and you see the guys riding the bulls? Where do you think they're from? Do you think they're from Beverly Hills? No, those are the fake bull riders. They're not the real ones. They're fake. It's a digital imposition of the actor riding a bull. Do you think that they're in the neighborhoods where Woody Allen lives? They ride bulls. No, they ride in limousines on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. But the men who actually ride bulls and break steers and break horses, I know it sounds hurtful to the snowflakes out there, but you see, in order to take a wild horse and make the horse tame enough to ride and stuff, you have to actually break its spirit. I know it sounds very sad. I know you were raised as a wild child by your parents who let you smear whatever you wanted on the wall. because she thought it was art. Even if you took your wet diaper and smeared it on the wall, and if your father dared say anything, your mother probably said, "No, honey, don't hurt Melvin's spirit. Don't you see it's like a Picasso on the wall, honey?" So you see, you don't ride bulls in Manhattan. All you do is throw the bull in Manhattan. But in a state where they're actually bull riders and meat eaters, you can't keep going to them and sticking a mic in their face and setting them up when they say, "Get out of my face." You know, get out of my face. You better start respecting people's boundaries. You never know what might happen. Now, there's more to the story that you don't know that you're going to learn on the show today. A lot more. And we're going to talk about that. If Trump talked with Russia, so damn what? He said he would. And I also showed you with a soundbite just now, which will be a story on World Net Daily in a bit. And I hope it's widely disseminated, that I predicted that the narrative would be that there was Russian hacking, and that's why he won. I told it to Donald on October 17th before anybody else in the medium of radio. Because, like Linnaeus, the pilot seer of the Argonauts, I'm atop the highest mast in the radio business. No one sees farther than I do. Nobody ever has and nobody ever will. It's just a fact of reality. Now, having said that, what good is this going to do anyone? Am I going to gain anything by this? Maybe I will gain the respect of those out there who don't really know what's going on with the Russia thing, that it's a complete false narrative. A totally false narrative. Of course he spoke with people in Russia before he was inaugurated. He said he would, and he did so. So what? Don't you remember what Obama was trying to do, start a war with Russia? Don't you remember what Hillary did, calling Putin Hitler? You forgot that? Remember, we lived through the Cold War with Russia in the 50s when I was a little boy. I had Nike missile installments outside my neighborhood there in Queens, New York. Believe it or not, in bare lots, there were Nike missile batteries. Would you believe this? We used to bicycle by them. We're ready for a war with Russia. It was living under a cloud, a fear of a nuclear war any minute. And then the Cold War ended. Glasnost came, the wall fell down, the whole thing. Russia became a different nation, and there was peace with Russia. Suddenly they could buy dungarees on their own. They didn't have to smuggle them in. Suddenly all the girls that no longer looked like Stalin's housekeeper arrived in America, and people started to love Russia again. And there was peace with Russia. Everyone liked Russians. And then along came the snake. Or along came the snake from Indonesia, Kenya, Hawaii, wherever he... And the snake started the narrative that Russia's our enemy and wanted a war with Russia. And then Hillary wanted to win, so she started another fake narrative created by her PR firm that Russia this, Russia that, Russia's no good. They always needed to have somebody to demonize. But do you know about this thing in Montana on the other story? Do you know who this reporter is, what he did to Gianforte? You're going to learn right now on the Savage Nation. DJ is calling, I think, on KSFO online, line 8. DJ, what's the story about that reporter who was goading the reporter in Montana?
Thanks, Michael. Basically, we think of instigating and baiting as checkers. This guy's been playing chess. It's not a one-off move. I've known Greg for 20 years. This thing last night was just the last of a series of moves in the ultimate setup. The same guy 3 weeks ago was the one pushing the story falsely that Greg had a secret, covert Russian investments. So he was planting the seed, setting Greg...
Wait. You mean this the rat reporter whose glasses got broken was pushing that lie?
Yeah, I got a phone call April 29th, my wife's birthday, dinner, and from someone in Montana saying, this is the story that's coming out, and it's the same guy, Ben Jacobs, who is pushing Russia on Greg in his investment portfolio, which I can tell you is not the case.
Well, you know, there are libel laws that could apply even to so-called reporters. They're not above the law. You know that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some chess moves starting to take place now up in Montana after elections occur, right?
Let me just tell you something. There are vermin in the media who try to say things about me and my background that are totally false, and they keep repeating them. Well, one of them just did it to me, and my lawyer went after them through their lawyer, and he said, if you don't give us a retraction, we're going to sue you and break your magazine. They retracted it immediately. They are subject to libel laws, and your candidate should use the laws that protect all of us from rats, whether they wear eyeglasses or not. We are now living in a war. and we are in a war zone, and we're fighting for our survival, and I thank you for that call. Believe me, I thank you for that call. Before I take my break, I invite you to call 855-407-282 on Moscow to Montana. And I want to tell you something that's very important. And you know I talk about a great night's sleep because I'm a really light sleeper. And a great night's sleep actually does help me have a great day. It should help you have a great day. And I get a great night's sleep every night on my Casper mattress. I've told you that. The Casper mattress was invented with 2 high-tech foams that happens to give us all the support that we need and guarantees that we get the best night's sleep ever. It comes to you for free in a box that's so small you won't believe it holds a mattress. Easy to get into your bedroom. And I love that Casper lets you try the mattress for 100 nights in your own bedroom. Risk-free. They'll come pick it up if you don't love it as much as I love mine. And they give you back everything. No questions asked. From its breakthrough design to its packaging to letting you try it for 100 nights. It's no wonder Casper was named one of Fast Company's 50 most innovative brands of 2017. So, getting a guaranteed great night's sleep is even easier thanks to this special offer from Casper. Now through May 30th, you can save $75 on the purchase of your mattress and an additional Casper product at Casper.com when you use my code SAVAGE. Write it down. That's Casper.com, code SAVAGE for $75 towards your purchase of the mattress and an additional Casper product. Get yours today at Casper.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Well, look, I'm not going to hold this for 3 straight hours. We're talking about very serious stories, both, let's say, local, national, and international. And I played some tapes from October of 2016 where Donald Trump was on this show, where he said he would meet with Putin before taking office, said he would, to calm things down. And then I looked ahead and I said they're going to make up a narrative that the election was hacked and it's illegitimate. I said that in October. I saw what they were doing. I saw the chess moves, and I played those. Then we played the Montana story, where a sneaky rat reporter kept goading and goading and goading a candidate, a Republican, of course, and apparently the Republican freaked out and gave him a body slam, and I think he was arrested for it, but he's still running for office, and I've asked people in Montana to call to see where they stand on this. I didn't tell them what to do. If you listen very carefully, have you backed out on Gianforte, or are you actually supporting him more now? That's what I want to know. And then we talked about opiates, because a story came out of drug counselors overdosing at an addiction facility in Pennsylvania. And this is an astounding story because I do not believe that this is a unique story. I believe, and I have believed for many years, that the very same people who sell drugs on the streets are involved in the recovery business. I have no way to prove that. But to me, it's part and parcel of the same industry. And there's only one solution to this problem. And unfortunately, we don't live in the Philippines. The phone number is 855-400-7282. That's the phone number. If you care to comment on any of these crazy stories, I'll be here with you for the next couple of hours, quote, I hope. You never know what happens in the middle of a show. And then there's other stories. Theresa May of the UK is now freaked out, saying that the special relationship is undermined by the leaks of the New York Times. It's amazing. The British police shared pictures and stories of the attack by the Muslims on the poor girls, and they were immediately leaked from somebody in our intelligence communities to the New York Times, damaging our relationship with England. It was not Donald Trump who did it. It's the enemy within. It's the enemies within the New York Times, the enemies within the government itself. Pay careful attention to the bouncing ball. This is the Savage Nation. See you in a few minutes.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He'll be back tomorrow. In the meantime, pick up a copy of the book that debuted at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, Trump's War, His Battle for America. More important for these times than ever before. The Savage Nation, the cornerstone of the Trump presidency. Trump's War, His Battle for America, like reading in real time what is going on right in our midst today. And we're going to be taking your calls on these topics, 855-400-SAVAGE. Again, Lou Pate, glad to be here. The doctor will be back tomorrow. Obviously, there's the issue of terrorism in Manchester, the growing threat of ISIS, political correctness across the European continent, which has allowed it to breed and spread. But why here in the United States? Why in Europe are they so reluctant to identify the issue of Islam, the issue of terrorism, and the link that comes with them? Why are mayors like de Blasio in New York and others around the country afraid to confront what is going on in the mosques in their cities? Why is the media not covering what happened in the Philippines, in the city of Iligan? Okay, well, you had the president of the Philippines was visiting Moscow, had to go home, had to cut his trip short because of violence there, saying, we are in a state, and I quote, we are in a state of emergency. I have a serious problem, and the ISIS footprints are everywhere. And those ISIS footprints in the city of Iligan have, it includes the beheading of a police chief, the burning of buildings, the seizing of a Catholic priest and his worshippers, and raising the black flag of ISIS. At least 21 people have died. I mean, not taking anything away from Manchester and the horrors that happened there to the men, women, and unfortunately children, but this is right up there. You have ISIS taking territory in the Philippines. The Philippines, who are supposed to be our ally, put on CNN, put on MSNBC, put on Fox. You're not going to find it. Why is it? The only place you're going to hear about it is here at the Savage Nation. The daily cutting off of heads and the repugnant way they try to think of more vile ways to execute people, lighting them on fire, putting them in cages and lowering them slowly into the water, tying them to vehicles and driving off in opposite directions. And now we have a police chief being killed. We have a Catholic priest and his worshippers being kidnapped. 21 people dead. And still, you don't hear about it. This is terrorism, folks. So why won't the media cover it? Why are we, not you and I, but why is the world afraid of the perception of calling radical Muslim terrorists what they are? Terrorists, okay? Now, this all began on Tuesday. There was the Filipino army raided the hideout of Isnilan. It's a commander of the Abu Sayyaf militant group. They pledged allegiance to ISIS, okay? They're on Washington, D.C.'s most wanted terrorist list. $5 million reward for information leading to this guy's capture. So the militants called for reinforcements, and around 100 gunmen entered the Marawi city, and they wreaked havoc. Now, this city is mostly Muslim. You've got a couple 100,000 people living there, but the ones that are not Muslim, like across different parts of the world, in places that are majority Muslim, if you're a Christian or if you're Catholic or any other faith, you become a victim. So now they're sending a message. President Duterte, he declared martial law for 60 days in the region, okay? And this is the result of what is happening. Why are we not hearing about it? Why isn't anybody sending help for these people. This is an ally of ours. This is how ISIS marches across the globe. Again, in Europe, they put their head in the sand. They were reluctant to even call the attack in Manchester after the concert terrorism. And now we have terrorism where a president he's in Moscow, president of the country has to run back home to address the issue, and no one is talking about it. Why? Why not? If this had been any other group, okay, if this had been a group of Christian radicals, if this had been a group of Jewish radicals, we don't have Christian and Jewish radicals, but I'm just using that term to bring you the depth of it. This is what's going on in the world, yet nobody wants to talk about it. Why? Because they're Muslim terrorists, okay? And it comes back to what I said in hour one, which bears worth repeating. It is that issue of guilt. For some reason, the former president, Barack Obama, had this issue. He had this affinity for Islam, which is fine, and he was so blinded by his affinity for Islam, he was so blinded by his left-wing ideology that the two got warped. And he was not able to separate the religion of Islam, which I have numerous problems with anyway, and the issue of Muslim fundamentalist terrorists. To date, still saying the name. So when situations like this happen, we don't hear about them. You're not going to hear Wolf Blitzer talking about ISIS seizing land in the south part of the Philippines. Okay, you're not going to hear about it. You're not going to hear Jake Tapper. You're not going to hear anybody on MSNBC talk about ISIS terrorists rampaging through a city and killing innocent people, kidnapping a priest and killing a police chief. 21 people dead. How many people were killed in Manchester? 22. Very sad. Okay, high profile because, well, it was a concert and it was a lot of kids. This one wasn't caught on video. That plays part in it as well. But that, nonetheless, we have 21 dead people due to terrorism. Islamic State-linked militants. Okay? Answering the president, I don't know, there because he called for martial law, trying to take land. I don't know what their reasoning is, except that they like to kill. But this is what is going on in the Philippines, and you will not hear it anywhere else. And it comes back to what I said before. Can we stop pretending that the problem with terrorism is not Islam related? Can we stop pretending that it is not coming from the Middle East? Can we stop pretending that it is not centrally fed from organized groups? Pivot back to Manchester, the sophistication of that bomb, as I touched on earlier. This was not some crazy kids in Colorado building a bomb in their room and then going to school with a bunch of guns. This is an organized network, okay? Trained bomb makers that know what they're doing, that are going to get the maximum value of casualties, and they knew how to plan it. They waited till the concert was over. The singer was backstage, her gig was done. People were going home, happy with the show, not happy with the show, regardless. A bunch of kids, they probably were just happy to be at a concert. And the bomb was set off near the exit, where the most people would be at that time, after the show. Okay? There's a lot of theories as to why they would have gone to a concert. The simple reason is it's a soft target. But now we have the issue of this going on in the Philippines. And it's kind of troubling. It's almost like if you don't rate, they're not going to cover it. Or if it makes Islam look bad, they're not going to cover it. A president of the Philippines said that a local police chief was stopped at a militant checkpoint and beheaded. And, I mean, what more do you need? Has anybody commented on this? Has anybody seen this on TV? Because this is how it happens. They do this, they get emboldened, and then they'll try it in another country, or they'll try it in another part of the Philippines. This is what's happening in Europe. We saw the attacks in Paris, and we saw the attacks in Brussels, and now we see 2 this year in England. It is so incremental, folks, and when you don't do anything, they get further emboldened. They need to be killed, okay, immediately. Like Trump said, you need to annihilate them. That's what, and I'm not a tough guy. I'm not coming, I got to kill all. No, and I'm not saying kill Muslims. Don't go twisting my words. I am saying that terrorists, where they live and breathe, need to be put out to pasture. And that's what has to be done. Because now, in the southern part of the Philippines, they're emboldened. Like, we got away with this. We beheaded a police chief. Nobody did anything. We kidnapped all those people, probably encouraged by Boko Haram. Remember, bring back our girls? They only got back a few of them just a few weeks ago. They get lip service by the Obama administration. And the terrorists, whether it's in the southern part of the Philippines or Manchester or any part of Europe, have been emboldened by 8 years of the Obama administration either agreeing with what they were doing or not knowing how to address what they were doing or not wanting to get involved because of that perception, that guilt, that, oh, you're attacking Muslims. Remember, if I can go back to the beginning of the year in Trump's travel ban, which they called a Muslim ban, as we talked about here on the Savage Nation at the time, it didn't affect 87% of Muslims, yet the media kept calling it a Muslim ban. More fake news. So this is what we're looking at here, folks. This is what makes it worse. This is what moves the ball forward for Muslims and for their terrorist counterparts. Well, not Muslims, but for Muslim fundamentalist terrorists. And people will take that and turn it into a big deal. They take this land, they kill these people, and they're like, hey, we got away with it here. Let's go do it there. They're sending a message to the Filipino president that we're not going to obey martial law. We're not going to put up with your tough guy tactics against drug dealers. We're going to do what we want. He's got a big problem there on his hands, and the world doesn't seem to care. Well, the world didn't seem to care about those girls in Manchester either. The media and the leftist elites in the media and the left-wing politicians across the globe seem still more interested in protecting the image of Islam. And that is disgusting. We'll come back to your phone calls, 855-400-SAVAGE. Lou Pate sitting in for Dr. Savage here on the home of Trump's war, his battle for America, the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He will return tomorrow. In the meantime, pick up a copy of Trump's War, more important for these times than ever before, and some of what you could expect in Trump's war, his battle for America. Far-left radicals who have taken over the Democratic Party. Rhinos protecting their big business special interests. War profiteers with trillions to lose if Trump restores peace. That focuses right there on what Trump did this past week with his very successful trip to the Middle East, meeting with both the Israeli and Palestinian leaders and the liberal media who will stop at nothing to bring down Trump. It is all there in Trump's War, his battle for America, the book that debuted #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. I like saying that. That's my favorite part of all because I know it drives the New York Times crazy. And we know that they are listening here to the Savage Nation. We're talking about martial law in the Philippines. We're talking about a terrorist attack in the Philippines where the Islamic State-linked militants have besieged the Filipino city in the south, killing 21 people. Folks, taking nothing away from Manchester, but this is terrorism just the same. And nobody wants to cover it. I think it's because they don't want to offend the Muslims. They don't want to show that there is an issue when it comes to the faith of Islam and terrorism, and that there is a direct link, as Robert Gates said, the battle between good and evil. And as I said earlier, can we just stop pretending that there is not a problem with Islam and radical Islam in the world? Now, this is what we have coming from our friends on the Democratic Party. Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut. Here's what he said on CNN. Robert, clip number 7, please.
We can never be 100% protected as a country. And, you know, we do need to remember here in the United States that there have only been on average a couple people a year who are killed in terrorist attacks. You are much more likely in this country over the last 10 years to have been killed by a falling object than you are by terrorism. So I think we want to right-size the threat here in the United States while recognizing that we all need to step up our efforts.
Have you ever heard ignorance? This is, he's from Connecticut. What do you expect? Come on. You had the home of, what's his name, Blumenthal? The guy who pretended to be a Vietnam vet, the guy who pretended to be a war hero. And you got the other guy over there, Jim Himes, another Trump hater, a.k.a. American hater. And this is it. This is you're more likely to, have something else happen to you. Yeah, but here's the thing. In life, folks, accidents happen, okay? People fall downstairs. There's car accidents and so on and so forth. People fall off ladders cleaning the gutters. These are unfortunate tragedies that do happen in everyday life, okay? I can even say they're almost normal. Normal tragedies. Being blown up at a concert, okay, is not normal. Okay, being run down by a person who's trying to run down people on a sidewalk is not normal. Shopping for Christmas presents, as was the case in Berlin, and a truck comes, mowing through the market to kill festive people during a festive time of the year, or last summer in Nice, France, down on the Causette, riding a truck and killing, 82 people. This is not normal, okay? What's normal is somebody having a heart attack while driving and then unfortunately jumping the curb and possibly hitting someone else, okay? That is sad. That is tragic. It happens, but still it is acceptable. Sad nonetheless, but acceptable in society. Because it's an accident. That's why we have the word accident. Doing it on purpose is hateful. It's terrorism. And so while, yes, you eat a bad diet, you might develop heart disease. But there are not worse ways. They're playing the numbers. The liberals like to play the numbers. And to say that you are more likely to be killed by other things in the country than terrorism or a falling object, as Murphy just said there, it's just ignorant. It's basically saying, I think you're stupid, and this is why. I'm going to tell you this because I don't want to address the issue of radical Muslim fundamentalist terrorism. Hey, for all of those holding, we're going to come right back. We're going to get to your calls. Why does nobody care about those poor people in the Philippines being attacked by ISIS? 21 dead. You're listening to The Savage Nation, the home of Trump's war. The New York Times #1 bestseller, His Battle for America. My name is Lou Pate. This is The Savage Nation.
Join The Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE.
Welcome back to The Savage Nation. My name is Lou Pate, sitting in for Dr. Savage. He will return tomorrow. In the meantime, pick up a copy of Trump's War, His Battle for America. More important now than ever. Again, it cannot be said enough. It's like reading the current events of today and tomorrow in real time. Go to michaelsavage.com, sign up for the newsletter. It's delivered free to your inbox. And while there, order your copy, or maybe a gift for a friend, of Trump's War, His Battle for America. Coming up a little later in the show, we're going to be discussing the issue of Facebook and really how they're supposedly on this crusade where they're going to thwart fake news, but yet it has been revealed that in their rules and regulations that they're going to allow people who deny the Holocaust to keep posting on Facebook, yet they're not going to allow, it's strange. It's weird. They're going to, in countries where it's illegal, which are 14, it's actually illegal in 14 countries to be a Holocaust denier. They're only going to enforce it in 4 of those. In one post, there's a picture of a concentration camp with the caption, "Never again believe the lies." This was permissible on Facebook. So, the hypocrites at Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg of the Jewish faith, it boggles my mind that this is going on. Again, Facebook is supposedly on a crusade against fake news, but they're going to allow Holocaust deniers to continue to spew their venom. I don't get it, but we'll talk more about that a little later. In the meantime, talking about the issue in the Philippines, ISIS going crazy in the south, killing people, beheading a police chief, kidnapping Christians, 21 people dead. And we're not hearing about it on the news. Terrorism, well, it comes in many shapes and forms, and I don't know why the media doesn't want to cover this. In my opinion, it's because they do not want to shed a negative light on Islam and its connection to radical Islam. It's just the way it is. Let's get to the phones. John, KSFO, Dr. Savage's flagship in San Francisco. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Thank you for holding.
Hey, thank you very much. Great show. Hey, one of the connections that isn't being made, and that is obvious to me, and we spend billions throughout the world in surveillance, and we're being beaten on these incidents by a bunch of stoners. The Sonaire brothers in Boston proved to be smoke a lot of pot all the time. Paris, those people were in opium dens, and now the guy in Manchester, he was a pothead, a big cannabis guy. And they always want to make the disconnection. Oh, there's no problem with drug. Pot's not a problem, and we got the cartels cutting off people's heads on the border, and it just seems to me that we spend all this money and we're getting defeated by these clowns that are just a bunch of dopers. It makes no sense on any level.
Well, that's an excellent observation, and John, 100% accurate. Actually, in the Daily Mail today, at dailymail.com, they describe, pot smoker becomes terrorist. I'm paraphrasing the headline now, but they reference as pot smoking, and I believe it was rumored that Omar Martin, the Orlando massacre, the shooter there, he was involved in drugs in some capacity at all. Here's what I'm thinking, John. Two things. One, they got to get them all doped up in order to do this. In order to put a suicide vest on, they're going to have to give you something more than a little weed, probably. I wouldn't be surprised if they're injecting them with a lot more or giving them pills. But why we're not hearing about it, to your point, is, the media, the left-wing media, is very pro-narcotics, we'll say, where pot is illegal, whether it's the state of Washington, state of Colorado, wherever, they are pro-cannabis, they're pro-legalization of marijuana, and, it's a stretch, but I'm just thinking that they don't want to accentuate the fact of how drugs are playing a part in this. But you're right, in most of them, it always comes up that they engage, even if just casually, and it's probably more so than that. But, John, thanks for your call and for bringing that up. Let's go to Steve, also at Dr. Savage's flagship, KSFO. Hey, Steve, welcome. We didn't get Steve. We'll come back to Steve another time. Let's go to where I am in South Florida, the great 850 WFTL. Joe, welcome to the Savage Nation. How are you, Joe?
Hey, nice to talk to you, Lou. I'm a high school history teacher, 9th and 10th grade world history, and I brought the attacks up in every one of my classes, and I think the biggest problem is a lot of these kids are desensitized to the attacks. They hear about them and they feel bad for a few minutes, and then it's like, oh, who won the Yankee game last night, or who won in the playoffs the Stanley Cup. It's almost like you almost need, I hate to say this because I have two children, 10 and 13, you almost need this to happen more for them to really feel what's going on, because they don't get it from the media. And not that I want any more attacks, that's not what I'm saying. But it's like the media does not do a good enough job to really say how serious this is, where our kids, they hear it and it goes out in one ear and out the other, basically. And
why do you think they've been desensitized, Joe?
Well, the kids that I teach are 9th and 10th grade, so they grew up after 9/11. So they've been used to bomb-sniffing dogs when they go out. They've been used to high surveillance and this and that, and I think, other than myself, they get a pass on a lot of things. Like, oh, you can't say it was this, you can't say it was that. Don't rush to judgment. It could have been this, it could have been that. And they, I don't know if it's their parents or other.
Okay, no, that's interesting, because when I say what do you think, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just an opinion question, and I think part of it is the media. Because it's 24 hours, it's never ending. They're always trying to fill something, and a lot of times it's something negative, and then it's gone. Because look at it this way. This terrorist attack, in a few days, we will not be talking about it. All those lives lost, a little 8-year-old girl and all of the others. And in a few days, we won't be talking about it. It'll be something else. Actually, it is already something else on CNN and MSNBC. They're already back to the Russia thing more than they're covering the Manchester thing, because they're trying to push that narrative. But Thanks, Joe, for your call. You know, some people say it's video games. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the upbringing. If you're raised in a big city, you have more exposure to violence. You see it in the news every day as opposed to being in a rural area. It could be any number of things. But, yes, I think children have been desensitized to a certain point. But thank you for your call. Let's go to Ray at WABC. Welcome, Ray.
Nice talking to you. You know, Lou, I've been around a long time. I'm a product of the greatest generation. And we were brought up under the mantra, my country first, love it or leave it. Okay? And when I see for the last 8 years is a president that is perhaps the most gutless, spineless president. He's an embarrassment as a leader of this country. You know, those of us who were well attuned to his biography knew that he was a racist. We knew he was a anti.
Right. Okay. We've all, everybody's got their opinion on Obama, and I have mine, and a lot of it is there in the books. But what's your point, Ray?
Well, the point is the media has been a propaganda arm. They have protected Obama for 8 years.
No, we know that now, and now they're trying to bring down Trump. We know that the media is an arm of the DNC, and they do their bidding for them. But what's your point, though, Ray?
Well, my point is this. You know, when it comes to these types of terrorist actions, I happen to be Armenian. If you want to really know about terrorism, you know, there's a denial by the Turks of the genocide. Okay? Then you got George Stephanopoulos, a Greek. Let me tell you, if his grandparents knew, the side that he took, because, you know, the Greeks were also victims of the Turks, and there's always been a denial, okay? So now we have media that doesn't even address these types of, terrorist actions, and it'll continue until they are fully eliminated, okay? And fortunately, thanks to Dr. Savage and the others, the silent majority, okay, is fully behind our president and the Michael Savages of this world.
Well, we appreciate it, Ray. Thanks for your call, and thank you for your support. And I speak for Dr. Savage when I say thank you for listening as well. 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-SAVAGE. You know, you are looking at the TV, you see all of this still beating the drum when it comes to Russia. I've noticed that they have backed away from the impeachment talk. So why do you think the Democrats seem to be backing away from the impeachment talk? Right now, the narrative is the obstruction of justice narrative. That's what they're pushing. They know they're not going to get impeachment, except for that, Maxine Waters running around out there. But they're not going to get impeachment, so they're wondering, what else now? So now it's obstruction of justice, but they can't seem to find any obstruction of justice there either. So is this constant drumbeat about Russia from the Democrats and the media, is it working or backfiring? I think eventually they're going to be like the boy who cried wolf. But let's get back to the phones. Abdul at WDGJ, how are you? Welcome to the Savage Nation.
Fine, thanks. Thanks for taking my call. I want to talk to you about these, when you say that about Muslims, so I know you didn't mean that all are Muslim, but sometimes sounds like you're talking about all Muslim. I'm a Muslim, I'm American, I love this country. The problem with these people, with the sick people, look at that. They kill more Muslim people than anybody. Just a month and a half ago, in Afghanistan, they went to the hospital. They went to there, they killed, look at that, the patient and the people was in the hospital, the doctors.
Right.
So these are sick people, but the problem is, our problem is because we get so much involved with those countries. Look at that. Those people, they don't like those government because those government is not elected by the people.
What government are you talking about?
Well, the Saudis, like the Kuwait, all those, they're all the king. And we are supporting. Look at that. We went to there, Trump was talking so much about the Muslims. And they went to the people who signed a contract under the $10 billion and selling weapons. So for what? To killing the other people? So that's...
Oh, you're talking about the weapons accord. Hold on, Abdul. You said you're Muslim, correct?
Yes.
And you're American. You love America. Now, the problem is within your faith. This cannot be denied. The connection between Islam and terrorism, and terrorism's linked to the Middle East, where people are mostly Muslim, cannot be denied. The fact that mosques are being used to radicalize young people and then get people that are radicalized to go recruit others cannot be denied. The recruitment that's going on online from imams cannot be denied. I mean, this is your faith. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Okay, you see, the problem is because of lack of education. People doesn't know about Islam. In Islam, I read the book so much. I haven't read it, you believe it or not. I'm a majority of the Muslim people, over 90% of the people, they don't know the meaning of the Quran. They go by this Khalifa, by the Aziz, they call them. You know, they all fake lie. In Quran, if you read the Quran, please read it. They say that if you want it, you give me my number, give me your number, I give you all the verses. You know, they love about Christian and Judaism. In the Quran, they say that if you kill one innocent people, like you kill the whole humanity. If you save one person, you like...
But Abdul, I understand what you're saying, but how do you feel mosques are being used as centers for terrorism? This is going on everywhere, and no one seems to be protesting it. If the people of the Muslim faith really cared, they'd be, protesting millions strong, or should be protesting millions strong all around the world. All we get is crickets.
Sir, they do, but what happened?
Wait. Where are the protests?
In Afghanistan, you watch the news. Afghanistan, they write so many times. What happened is that most of these fundamentalists, they are supposed...
I'm not, Abdul, no disrespect, but I'm not concerned about Afghanistan. I'm concerned about here. Okay, I live in South Florida. I know there's mosques in South Florida that are being used for terrorist purposes. Down in the Miami area, we know about New York. We know about San Francisco. We know about Chicago. How come no one's organizing in the Muslim faith to, bring your, take your religion back, so to speak?
Okay, so now you said that I want you, what I said, everything, I could it, I mean it, yeah, I give you my number. In this Albany, I'm here. And how many mosques I could tell you that the number I could give it to you?
All right, listen, Abdul, I got to go. You know how to contact me, but thank you very much. I got to take a break. Lou Pate here with you. You're listening to the Savage Nation, and it's a simple question, Why do Muslims allow their mosques to be used for recruitment centers for terrorism? Only they can answer that. Lou Pate here with you, the home of Trump's war, his battle for America. I encourage you to pick it up. Go to michaelsavage.com when you're getting your news of the day, signing up for the newsletter. Order your copy of Trump's War, His Battle for America. You are listening to The Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Welcome back to the Savage Nation. Lou Pate sitting in for Dr. Savage. He will return tomorrow. In the meantime, pick up a copy of Trump's War, His Battle for America, the #1 New York Times best-selling book and best-selling author. And did I mention? The book debuted at #1. Of course I mentioned it because it's worth mentioning, not only because it's true and it's an astounding feat, but it also drives the folks at the New York Times crazy, which I like to do. Trump's War, His Battle for America, like reading the events that are going on right now in real time. Dr. Savage ahead of his time on this one. Trust me, Trump's War, His Battle for America. I got to ask you this. We have the terrorist attack in Manchester. Little girls and teeny boppers killed, shredded by nail bombs. Adults killed as well. Where is the march here in America? Where's the march for women that we saw earlier in the year? Where are the women of America who, under the guise of caring about their fellow women, had a march? Really what it was I hate Trump, and I'm very sour and bitter over the fact that our horrible candidate, the worst candidate in the history of presidential elections, lost. Why? Where are you? The terrorist, the Israeli terrorist, or the anti-Israeli terrorist, who spent 10 years in jail for terrorism, who organized one of those women marches. Where are you? Why are you not organizing? Where is the left in this country? Why are you not organizing a march for the murdered little girls and young ladies and their moms in Manchester? Where are the protests? Where is the memorial march? Nothing. Because if you can't hate Trump, you got nothing. You're listening to The Savage Nation, the home of Trump's war, his battle for America.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He will be back tomorrow. In the meantime, pick up a copy of Trump's War, his battle for America, more important for these times than ever before. Debuting number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list, along with a lot of Dr. Savage's other books, joining its cousins, brothers and sisters there on the New York Times bestseller list. Quite the accomplishment to be on that list at any time, but to debut there, truly impressive. So pick up a copy for yourself, pick it up as a gift. For your uninformed friends, I'll say, they'll be truly informed after reading Dr. Savage's latest book, Trump's War, His Battle for America. And you can hold me to it on that. Trust me. You'll be calling me up saying, Lou, you were right. In the meantime, we're going to take your calls, 855-400-SAVAGE. If you're holding, please continue to hold. We're going to get to all of your calls. We've got a lot coming up for you in this hour. But as mentioned earlier in the show, I guess it's still okay to be an anti-Semite anywhere in the world, especially here in the United States. The media forever enabling, forever coddling Muslim terrorists, as we saw with the Manchester attack a few days ago, not wanting to call them terrorists, calling them bombers, calling them attackers, calling them everything but what they are, Muslim fundamentalist terrorists. Now we have Facebook and anti-Semitism on Facebook. There are 14 countries in the world where it's actually illegal to be a Holocaust denier. Why somebody has to make that a law is beyond my comprehension. It's there. Auschwitz, Dachau, all of the concentration camps, the over 10 million people killed, the videos of the bodies being bulldozed and so on. I don't have to get into all of the graphic details of the horror that was the Holocaust, and wasn't all that long ago. You know, you think about all of the wars, you think about all of the horrors throughout history, and this is basically in our time, 1939 to 1945. It wasn't that long ago. We still have Holocaust survivors with the tattooed numbers on their arms who can tell stories. But like the World War II veterans from the Greatest Generation, we are losing more and more of them with each passing day. It's just time. It's just what happens to all of us. We all go in that direction. But Facebook, created by a Jewish man, Mark Zuckerberg. I've never met, but Mark, I'd like to interview him because I've got a lot of questions for this character. But Facebook, who now over 2 billion people in the world have Facebook accounts, and Facebook, which is involved in news and it's involved in a lot of different things, got caught with their pants down, censoring conservative views, censoring conservative news, is now on a crusade to, stop fake news. But are they really? Because guidelines have been leaked for moderators that reveal that, depending on where you are, they're going to allow people who deny that the Holocaust ever happened to continue to post online. In countries where it's illegal, if they're going to get sued, they'll make their moderators take it down. Just like everything else. If you hit someone in the pocket, all of a sudden their views change. But Why is this allowed to be happening? We hear about climate change deniers. I guess you'd call me one because I know I know climate change, global warming. I know it's a fraud. But the Holocaust is something that I'm not even Jewish, and to me it's sacred because it has to do with humanity, and it has to do with how horrible human beings can be to one another, just over the idea of religion and the view of people who come from certain faiths. When it came to the Jews, they were slaughtered, okay? And we say never again. But now we look at the Muslim radical fundamentalists, and they're not slaughtering people at the level that the Nazis were, but they would if they could. If they could set up concentration camps throughout the world and get rid of all of us the infidels, as we're called, who do not see life as they want it to be, they would kill all of us. So why is it that the liberal elites here in the United States and across the world, many of which are Jewish, many of whom are Jewish, why do they coddle and enable? Been asking this all day. Why do they coddle and enable? Why does a CEO, one of the most powerful businessmen in the world, Mark Zuckerberg, allow for Holocaust deniers on his Facebook website? It's beyond comprehension, and I'll tell you why. Because it's still okay to be an anti-Semite, okay? It's still okay to be against Christianity. It's still okay to want to kill Catholics. That is why the topic that we talked about earlier with the southern Filipino city of Iligan under siege by ISIS commandos who killed a police chief and killed 20 other people, kidnapped a Catholic priest and his worshipers, is not getting any play. Okay, because they're targeting Christians. It's Muslims targeting Christians, and the media does not want to highlight another black mark against Islam. And what it comes to here, it just boggles the mind with Facebook. Documents show that Facebook has told moderators to remove dehumanizing speech or any calls for violence against refugees. Content that says migrants should face a firing squad or compares them to animals, criminals, or filth also violate its guidelines. Now, when it comes to removing calls for violence, obviously, I'm okay with that. We don't want to see anybody hurt. We don't want to see anybody promoting ill will against any other group, whether it's the color of their skin or their religion or anything like that. But we do have freedom of speech. And the most important thing about freedom of speech is supporting speech that you do not agree with. That's the most important part. It's not about just getting together with everybody who agrees with you like the liberals do. They like to go to their coffee shops and sit in circles and back in the day talk about how horrible and stupid George W. Bush was, and then later on talk about how wonderful Barack Obama is. Why is Barack Obama wonderful? Oh, because he's black. Oh, he's wonderful. It doesn't matter that everything he touched failed, turned to salt. And now it's about hating Trump, but liberals don't let in outside views. Whenever I talk to liberals outside of the show, they throw their words at you, but then they don't want to hear what you have to say. They are the most intolerant people on the face of the planet. And now we see this intolerance on social media. We see, if you're a Holocaust denier, first of all, you're ignorant, but you're also an anti-Semite. So we see anti-Semitism being allowed on Facebook, the world's biggest social media site. And I'd like to know from you, the listeners to the Savage Nation, why do you think this is being allowed to happen? We get chastised, we get ridiculed if we say we don't believe in global warming. Yet Holocaust deniers are allowed to run rampant, even in countries where it's illegal. Actually, of the 14 countries where being a Holocaust denier is illegal, there's only 4 where Facebook is enforcing their policy. The others, unless they're going to get sued, as mentioned earlier, they're allowed to run rampant. Never again believe the lies was permissible on Facebook, because that's what they say about the Holocaust, is that it never happened. You got to remember, these are the same kooks who said we never landed on the moon. They said that it was a studio. So it's very strange how this goes down, or why this would even happen. And it laughs in the face of Facebook's claim that they are on a campaign to get rid of fake news. There's nothing faker out there than saying the Holocaust didn't happen. I have met the people with the tattoos on their arms. I could think of one, I won't get into a long story at all, that I had numerous conversations with, fascinating conversations about when I was like 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, driving a truck in Manhattan, picking up stuff at a hardware store on the Lower East Side. Man was fascinating and shared his stories. A better education on the Holocaust than I got from any level of education, including on the college level later in my life. But now, enter into the Facebook fray. Remember, Facebook is supposedly getting rid of fake news, yet they allow Holocaust deniers. Facebook has signed BuzzFeed, Fox, and others for original video shows. Companies such as I mentioned, Vox Media, BuzzFeed, ATTN, which is an LGBT group out of Los Angeles, Group 9 Media. They're going to make shows for an upcoming video service that will feature long and short form content with ad breaks. Now, Facebook will not own the content, but they're going to distribute it on the site. All of these organizations are left-wing groups. Okay? They're not going to have anything that has the good of America, American symbolism, or anything with conservative values. It's going to be all left-wing propaganda, and probably a lot of it, for lack of a better term, fake news. If you go and you check out Vox Media, you check out BuzzFeed of all things, ATTN, Group 9 Media, and others. So it is truly amazing. So now Facebook's move to acquire and license original content, that's their latest in its push to attract more advertising dollars. And there it is, folks. It's not about getting rid of fake news. It's about making money while pushing the liberal narrative. And unfortunately, a lot of the liberal narrative is anti-Semitism. A lot of the liberal narrative is also, well, the Holocaust didn't happen. I've always wanted to go to Auschwitz. I always wanted to see the places that I've seen on video so many times. I don't know how I'd handle it emotionally once I'm there, but it's definitely a place that I want to see. And I'm not going to call it a bucket list thing because that would just be disrespectful to all the people who were there and all the people who lost their lives there. But to say that the Holocaust never happened, and for Facebook, of all companies, to allow that type of propaganda on their site, all I can say is, Mark Zuckerberg, you're making Joseph Goebbels proud. You're listening to The Savage Nation. My name is Lou Pate. Dr. Savage will return tomorrow, but be sure to pick up a copy of his book, Trump's War, His Battle for America.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He will be back tomorrow, and I encourage you to pick up a copy of Trump's War, His Battle for America, more important for these times than ever before. I said it before, but it bears worth repeating. It is like reading the events that we are going through daily in real time. I joke that it's like the book updates itself, but it really does. As I was reading to you earlier from the back cover, it says, while everyone else was still talking about the election, Michael Savage was already looking ahead to the war Trump and his supporters will have to fight. And what are we experiencing now? Heck, the guy's having a great trip to the Middle East. Well, now he's in Europe, but he was with the heads of the Israeli leadership and Benjamin Netanyahu and Abbas with the Palestinians, and everybody's getting along, and the media just cannot cover it. They cannot cover anything good. I actually will go so far as to say the media probably was happy for the terrorist attack because they then didn't have to cover the successful trip to the Middle East, but then again, they weren't covering it anyway. They were still on Russia. We're talking about anti-Semitism and Facebook. Facebook allowing anti-Semites, Holocaust deniers on their site. How can this be? Of course, except for where they are going to be sued in countries where it's illegal. Folks, that's right. You just heard me say it is actually illegal to be a Holocaust denier. Well, I'm not making fun of the law. I'm making fun of the fact that there has to be a law. How can there be Holocaust deniers? Enter in, well, Facebook yet again, getting in bed with a bunch of left-wing media organizations, BuzzFeed, Fox, and others. They're supposed to be against fake news, and yet they're allowing this to happen, and they're getting in bed with what I call fake news organizations, BuzzFeed, Fox. Hey, why don't they just hire the Young Turks? They're Holocaust deniers and they're fake news. They cover it both. Everybody out there in the Savage Nation audience is going, well, who's the Young Turks? That's probably the most promotion they'll get ever in their career. Turks. They're bigger clowns is over at BuzzFeed. But it is troubling. It is troubling that in this day and age, with all of the history, with all of the survivors, with all of the videos, with all of the documentaries, that there are people out there who still deny that the Jewish people was slaughtered like animals in gas chambers, that they refuse to acknowledge that this happened, even though the camps where they were slaughtered still exist and you can go and visit. Boy, if this was a fraud, if this was a prank, that is some distance to go to actually build the places where this happened. It's ignorant. It is as ignorant as the people who make up excuses for Muslim fundamentalist terrorists. But what this tells me, the fact that Facebook allows Holocaust deniers on their site while protecting refugees, Syrian refugees and others from Muslim nations, tells me that anti-Semitism is alive and well around the world. We hear about it from time to time. The media doesn't cover it as much. Many of them are complicit in what goes on by allowing it to happen. And a lot of them come from the Jewish faith. I said that before. I know I hate to sound redundant, but it is truly amazing to me. So now we have Facebook signing with left-wing organizations. Gee, I wonder what type of media entertainment they're going to give to the people. I doubt it's anything that's going to cover anything conservative or anything American or anything symbolic. Folks, it's time to move forward. We can't just move forward for civil rights. We just can't move forward for the rights of the gay community. If we're truly going to move forward as a society, we have to, well, know what happened in our past and accept it and move forward, because there's the old expression, and I've heard Dr. Savage say it. He who ignores history is doomed to repeat it, okay? And you want to ignore, you want to be ignorant, you want to be an idiot and say that the Holocaust never happened? Well, then you know what? It will happen again. It's happened on smaller scales. We've had Pol Pot. We've had Milosevic. We've had others. And until they come for you, you're just going to keep banging that drum. Truly amazing. Anti-Semitism alive and well. My name is Lou Pate. You are listening to The Savage Nation. Dr. Savage will return tomorrow. In the meantime, pick up a copy of his book, the New York Times ~1 bestseller, Trump's War, His Battle for America. This is The Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Welcome back. It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He will be back tomorrow. But pick up a copy of Trump's War, His Battle for America. You see it going on every day, folks. You see what's going on in the news, the fake news, and how they want to push the narrative that there was some type of Russia collusion. You see what's going on, how they try to attack Trump's foreign policy. You see how they're now trying to attack Trump's budget proposal. It is all right there, a visionary tome by Dr. Michael Savage, Trump's War, His Battle for America. It's not an accident that it debuted #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. So pick up a copy for yourself, or it would make a great gift. Trump's War, His Battle for America. Speaking of President Trump's budget, Lou Pate here with you. That's what we're going to talk about as we make our way to the top of the hour. The Democrats are doing what the Democrats do. They are spreading fear pertaining to President Trump's budget. And as I said at the top of the show, political correctness is domestic terrorism. And the words of Mayor de Blasio in New York, the words of Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, the words of Senator Schumer are nothing short of domestic terrorism, spreading fear, striking fear into the hearts and minds of the American people. But at the end of the day, the truth is, as in the New York Post, I love the title of their article, the truth about Trump's quote-unquote savage cuts. Always got to get the savage in there. I always like to think they're thinking about the show when they do this. It says here, relax, President Trump's new budget won't leave people starving or bleeding in the streets. Yes, it brought media hysteria. The plan would drive millions off food stamps, screamed an Associated Press article. It cuts deeply into Medicaid and anti-poverty efforts, cried the New York Times. But, folks, the fact is, the budget, $4.1 trillion in outlays, amounts to 21.3% of the economy, more than any of the last 4 years in line of the Obama administration, and in line with the last few decades. So there you have it. And the cuts would bring anti-poverty programs closer to pre-2009 levels. So all of this fear-mongering is just what it is, politicking. So why are they saying it? So let's hear some of it. Robert, if you will, this is the ignorant and very stupid mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, in clip number 14.
It is not an overstatement to say that some children will die because of this. This is why I think President Trump is going to find himself in a lot of trouble. 500,000 kids in his hometown will have less food to eat because of this proposal.
False. Fake news. But what about you, Mayor Wilhelm, Mayor de Blasio? What about you allowing Muslims to gather and speak of hatred and terrorism and plan terrorist acts in the mosques around New York City? What about you getting rid of stop and frisk? What about you allowing, small drug trades to go on the street corners of New York City? How much blood is on your hands? Let's go over the crime statistics since you came in there. And while murders are down, how much are other crimes up? Will the next terrorist attack that is born out of a mosque in New York City, should we come to you and say this is on you? Children will die. Please. But you see it, folks. It's domestic terrorism. Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York is a domestic terrorist because political correctness is domestic terrorism. Next we have up, and never disappointing, Nancy Pelosi. we hadn't heard from her in a while. She talks like that because you would think her jaw was wired shut, but she's had so much surgery pulling the skin back that we can barely understand what she's saying. Robert, please, clip 15.
So when we're talking about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, this is a killer for the American people, literally a killer. And as long as the public is aware of what is in these budgets, and that's the important point, they have to know there is a price to pay in terms of public opinion if they would vote for this. But they all did already vote for the Ryan budget, so they've gone down this path before because they're deconstructionists. They don't believe in governance and they don't believe in science, so they don't feel compelled to do any of these things.
She's just like grasping at straws. They don't believe in government. What else? They don't believe in science. Where did that come from? We're talking about finances. We're talking about budgets. You have to important to find out what past what's in it. She doesn't even remember the famous. We have to pass it to find out what's in it. Now all of a sudden she knows what's in it. Again, Nancy Pelosi, literally a killer, is the way she quotes the budget. Again, a domestic terrorist. Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, political correctness is domestic terrorism. You're trying to strike fear in the hearts of Americans. You are a domestic terrorist. Which brings me to I was going to say my favorite, but Maxine Waters is always my favorite. But Chuck Schumer. We haven't heard much from Uncle Chuck out of Brooklyn there for a while. I remember Dr. Savage always used to call Bernie Sanders the huckster with the cheap suit from Brooklyn. And Senator Schumer is a huckster, too. His suits are just a little bit better quality. Not much, but a little bit better quality than that of Bernie Sanders. But we haven't heard much from Chuck Schumer. Ever since his prodigy, Anthony Weiner, became a registered sex offender. See, this shows you the judgment of people. Think about it. Chuck Schumer took Anthony Weiner under his wing, groomed him, got him into Congress, and he was rising fast before his sexual proclivities, we'll call them, got him into trouble, and he got kicked out of Congress, okay? And then he was on the rise again because people that I grew up with in New York, I don't understand you, my folks. Well, not my friends, but people who grew up around me, I don't understand why they keep voting Democrats in, but that's a story for another day. He was Anthony Weiner was on the rise to become the mayor of New York City. So those listening in New York, you can thank Anthony Weiner for Mayor de Blasio. But anyway, Chuck Schumer groomed Anthony Weiner. So it shows you the lack of judgment on the part of Chuck Schumer that he was actually grooming a sexual predator, a alleged pedophile, a registered sex offender. And this, it gets better. This registered sex offender was married to Huma Abedin, who was the right-hand woman for presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. So what does that tell you about the judgment of Hillary Clinton? Think about it. Schumer groomed a now registered sex offender. Hillary's right-hand woman was married to same said sex offender. What does that say about the judgment of both Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer? It's all right there. Bad judgment is an understatement. And, well, we know what happened there. Thank God she wasn't elected. But if we can, Robert, cut number 16. This is Chuck Schumer in all of his comic book glory.
The Trump budget is comic book villain bad. And just like comic books, it relies on a fantasy to make all the numbers work. It's the kind of budget you might expect from someone who is openly rooting for a government shutdown. Haven't we heard the president say that? It's the latest example of the president breaking his promises to working Americans. This budget breaks promise after promise after promise that the president made.
There you have it. Now, Robert, I'd like to get 17 in there too because it's a great continuation. Again, this is Chuck Schumer, Senator Chuck Schumer from New York.
We expect the Trump budget will gash programs like Meals on Wheels. I even read in the paper this morning that the head of the Freedom Caucus said that even for him some of these cuts were too great. The SNAP benefits, making sure no kid goes to bed hungry in America. This is America. We've always done this.
When you have an extremist liberal politician who gets down in the mud on everything, such as Chuck Schumer, embracing and quoting the conservative Freedom Caucus, you know you have problems as a party. That is truly a funny thing. Comic book villain bad. And I like the way he goes on to talk about how comic book works. Comic books rely on fantasy to make in this cites a budget in reference to make all the numbers work. It's just funny. They don't know what to say. They're just coming up with things. And you know that Schumer sat down with people to say, what can we come up with? You know, the Guardians of the Galaxy is out there, and all the movies, the Marvel movies are out there. They probably had someone on his staff, to their credit, is a fan of comic books, which is fine, and said, oh, this is comic book villain bad. And Schumer, I could see him saying, is that what the kids are saying? Will that resonate? Will people know what what they're talking about? And he went with it. And it just sounds horrible. They don't know what to do. When you have Nancy Pelosi saying the budget is, and I quote, literally a killer, the mayor of New York saying children will die, when you have Chuck Schumer trying to strike fear in the hearts and minds of senior citizens, that's the Meals on Wheels reference there, folks. Don't think that he didn't know who he was appealing to there. When you say Meals on Wheels, you're trying to scare seniors. And then when you talk about taking away SNAP benefits, well, that just covers a huge portion of his constituency there in Brooklyn and other parts of New York City. People don't want to lose their SNAP cards. Basically, they're telling you that Trump is going to starve you because, as the clip said, this is America. We've always fed people. No kid goes to bed at night hungry. Okay? They are domestic terrorists. Chuck Schumer, domestic terrorist. Nancy Pelosi, domestic terrorism. De Blasio, domestic terrorism. Because why? As I've said a few times today, and I tweeted out earlier, political correctness is domestic terrorism. And when you are working with fear when you are spreading fear, when you are trying to get what you want by scaring people who many unfortunately don't know any better, that makes you a vile, repugnant person. And you're on the losing end. But then again, aren't Democrats always on the losing end? Think about it. When you look back just in recent history alone, well, you can go back all the way to to slavery when they were on the wrong end of that. But from slavery to Islam to the Trump budget, Democrats are always on the wrong end of what's going on. And everything in between, from Ferguson to Baltimore to having Black Lives Matter get a primetime speaking gig at the convention for Hillary Clinton last August. They're always on the wrong side. So why would they be on the right side of this budget? As I said earlier, the budget, $4.1 trillion, basically is more in outlays than any of the last 4 Obama years and is in line with much of the past few decades, okay? And take the food stamps. In 2007, you got 26 million people got them. That adds in all other government programs, soups kitchens, and various other charities. No one really had to go hungry back then, so you say the same is going to happen right now. So it's fear-mongering, and I will go so far as to say again, fear-mongering, scaring kids, saying that Republicans and Trump want to kill children, saying that children will die, scaring seniors, thinking those on the lower end of the income scale are going to lose their benefits and their SNAP cards. This is all the Democrats have. I don't understand how anybody could be a Democrat today. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. Lou Pate here with you. This is the Savage Nation, home of Trump's war, his battle for America.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
It's the Savage Nation. Lou Pate filling in for Dr. Savage. He'll be back in the big chair tomorrow, but in the meantime, pick up a copy of his New York Times #1 bestseller, the book that debuted at #1, Trump's War, His Battle for America. I cannot emphasize enough, folks, more important for these times than ever before. Hey, just a few minutes left. We've got Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Congresswoman from my neck of the woods in South Florida, a little south of me. She allegedly threatened the police chief for gathering evidence on a potential security breach. Basically, the long and short of it is that she allegedly threatened the U.S. Capitol Police, Matthew Verderosa, for holding computer equipment in the Iwan case. And the Iwan brothers and one of the brothers' wives had been alleged to have stolen equipment and possibly leaked classified information about U.S. intelligence operations. The wife fled to Pakistan. That's the short story of it. But now the computer ended up in Capitol Police's hands. They will not give it back to Wasserman Schultz. Remember, she fixed the Democratic primary and then was fired and hired 2 days later by Hillary Clinton. What does that tell you? She wants that computer back. And we have the audio of her threatening the police chief. Robert, if you will, clip number 19.
Members' equipment is members' equipment. It is not, under my understanding, the Capitol Police is not able to confiscate members' equipment when the member is not under investigation. It is their equipment, and it's supposed to be returned.
Well, I think there's extenuating circumstances in this case, and I think that working through my counsel and the necessary personnel, if that in fact is the case, and with the permission of through the investigation, then we'll return the equipment. But until that's accomplished, I can't return the equipment.
I think you're violating the rules when you conduct your business that way, and should expect that there will be consequences.
You should expect that there will be consequences. Wait, what are the Democrats pushing on CNN and MSNBC right now? Obstruction of justice. That's what I just heard, folks. Threatening a law enforcement officer, the voice you heard, Matthew Verderosa, and then obstruction of justice. I asked the question, what is on that computer? Did you hear the fear in her voice, the trepidation? What is on that computer? What is she afraid is going to be found on that computer? Remember, this is the woman who fixed the Democratic primary in favor of Hillary Clinton. Okay? This is the woman who did criminal acts in fixing that election, and nothing happened to her. She wasn't even charged. All she did was lose her job, only to be hired again by Hillary Clinton 2 days later. So, what's on that computer, folks? That's what I ask as we head out of the Savage Nation. Special thanks to Robert. Special thanks to Jim. Could not have done it without you guys, and I don't just say that. Excellent job. Always awesome working with you. And special thanks to Dr. Savage for having me. Make sure you pick up a copy of Trump's War, His Battle for America. You will not be disappointed. My name is Lou Pate. You are listening to The Savage Nation.
Savage.